Welcome to the Social Chase podcast show. I'm your host, Chase Taylor. My co-host today is my mom, Helen Taylor. And Social Chaser Paul is on the studio boards. We are a small but mighty team today. Our guests today are Casey Brophy, who is a program manager, and Jessica Gamache, who is the BCBA for Transcend ABA. Welcome, Casey and Jessica.
Thank you.
Casey is dedicated to supporting families as a whole. She has been providing services for adults and children with disabilities for over 15 years and loves all aspects of supporting families. Casey has a neurodivergent child of her own, which only deepens her passion for helping families navigate getting help for their children. Jessica has been a BCBA for 5 years and a special education teacher for 10 years. She is passionate about providing interventions that help the whole family.
Great job. Thank you. So thank you, Jessica and Casey, for coming here.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So we were talking, so both of you were at the Autism Forum last year. Thank you. And we shared about ABA there. And you're returning again on April 26th.
Yes.
Which is wonderful. And, there's always controversy about ABA. Chase had ABA. It was very effective for him. So why is ABA so beneficial for children?
Well, it definitely works on teaching skills that we might be struggling with, and it helps integrate the whole family and working on learning different ways to have these skills occur in different environments. I'm sure you saw it when you happened to win your own home and different programs that you worked with, that it helped you maybe go to the grocery store, or it maybe helped you learn a new social skill. But it's a great way and a really effective way to learn a variety of different skills. And it's the only scientifically proven method to work on some of the more challenging aspects of being on the spectrum.
So can you share some of the skills for some of the families? Because that can mean so many things. So it's just like an example. Chase's skills sometimes it was behavior in his earlier years, and he's still quiet, but just some of his behavior's fallen out because he couldn't communicate it. Mm-hmm. So what type of skills would you...
Well, like you said, communication is such a big piece of what we work on. It could be how to order at a restaurant, or how to go into Subway and navigate all of those choices and what to expect and how to move down the line. But it's really catered to what you need as an individual. Maybe I might not go to Subway, but maybe one of my clients or my friends do, and we need to make sure that they have the ability to do that if that's something that they want to do in their life. So it's really catered to what you want to do, and not so much what maybe the BCBA thinks is the most important thing right at that second. But that also brings in family buy-in, because if you don't buy in as a parent or as the client, then it's not going to happen. It can't just happen when the behavior tech is in the room or when the BCBA is with you. It has to happen everywhere.
It's a team effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's important for parents to understand that it's not just what the BCBA is saying to you. You have to get the BCBA feedback so they know how to help your child. So I think some parents don't realize that you're a team and collaborating to help the child.
And I think that's where that bad rep of ABA comes from, is I think the biggest thing I've always heard is it's compared to dog training, and that's not what we do at all.
No.
There's no punishment in ABA, and that seems to be what people think happens when we do ABA in homes, and that's not it at all. It's really encouraging positive choices, positive behaviors. A lot of our families, they encourage, they don't want us to discourage the things that make them autistic.
Mm-hmm, right.
We work with families to, certain stims. We don't even touch them. We don't go near them. Those are part of who that child is. Mm-hmm. And really, we just focus on improving the skills that they have, teaching them skills that they don't have, that they need to lead a very independent and successful life. And that's the goal with ABA.
Right. And like I said, with Chase, it was a positive for us because I had to give my feedback, certain things. I said, well, I want to see what you're doing and see what's working. So I definitely agree with that.
I feel like it's more opening up doors than closing doors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I think, so I'm on social media quite a bit, and I had a little conversation back and forth with individuals going against ABA. And for what I took, they had a bad experience.
Yeah.
And their bad experience has judged ABA. And I tell them you can't take your one unfortunate, terrible experience and loop it into all of ABA. And some of them are autistic, so they're like, well, this is all ABA.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's one of the things is really, that's why it's so important to have these conversations.
Oh, yeah. And
Because it's
ABA
very
is-
beneficial.
Yeah, ABA is like any other provider. It's any doctor or any, you know, there's good and then there's, you get the
Yeah.
couple of bad ones in the bunch. And
Yeah.
that doesn't show exactly what we do
Right.
for 90% of providers that are doing this for children.
Or sometimes the BCBA or the BT you're working with doesn't work for you. They might work for other people. But you have to be able to feel comfortable speaking up and saying, hey, this program isn't working for me. The way you're doing this, it doesn't work for me. We need to change it. Or feel comfortable seeking out a new provider.
Right.
Not every book is for every person. Not every doctor's for every person. But that doesn't mean it's not a good service or not a good book.
It's just not a good match.
It's not a good match. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
Okay, so what do good ABA services look like?
I think we kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think really good ABA services is a team that's collaborating and working together through all parts of it. Like I can say as a company, there should be encouragement and support for the family and the child to be as fully involved in their services as they can be. And also recognizing that families are families. A lot of these families work full time, they have multiple children. And having a child on the spectrum is not always easy. You have to adjust your life to that. And so an agency that understands that and respects that about families and isn't, just where we're having conversations about what does that look like for them? How do we fit these services into your life in a meaningful way? Not just we're going to get as many hours as we can. It doesn't matter if it's inconvenient or really you're not getting anything out of these services. Like you can have services from 4 to 8, but if that last hour, nobody's doing anything but being miserable because they've had services now in their 4th hour.
Right.
Those aren't good services.
Right.
That's just having services to have services.
Right.
You don't want to damage the relationship that you have with the person. I mean, you're ultimately working with people, and that is the most important part, is to see them as a human being first.
Correct. That's correct. So I'm going to ask you a challenging question. This is maybe controversial as well. From my experience, is that some parents will allow their child to have bad behaviors, and some of them are bad behaviors, and just say, well, it's autism, that everybody has to accept it. And Chase had certain behaviors that to us as parents was not acceptable. So we worked on it, and he's a very polite young man. And so, but some parents, I remember we were in a store and the little girl walked by and she's hit Chase. And I said, excuse me. She's like, oh, she's autism. I said, well, so does he. And I wouldn't allow it. So I think that that's a fine line because some parents are sensitive. This is the way my kid is. But we teach our children good, morals, what to do, what not to do. But some parents on the spectrum, they say, oh, just chuck it up that everything's autism and it should be allowed. So do you come across any of those challenges?
I think so. We come across those a lot, especially with families going into ABA for the first time. And what I encourage with them and everyone that works with that family is to have a little grace in the situation, because a lot of the times that I find that these families have been in survival mode.
Yes.
And they are just trying to get through every day, keeping it together. And if that means allowing behaviors that we know deep down are not correct and that we should be changing, but if it's between just allowing it or getting involved in that fight, a lot of times families just allow it to have their own sense of peace for the day. And there's a lot of guilt involved.
Yes.
And a lot of times families really struggle to face their own feelings about their guilt and their frustrations towards their children. When I speak to a family for the first time, I always tell them this is a safe space.
Right.
I've been practicing ABA therapy, and telling parents how to do it and the right ways to do it and things like that for years. And I have a son that struggles, and I will sit here and, against my better judgment, hand him a phone, even though I know it is setting him back and it will cause me behaviors tomorrow from it, because I just need 5 minutes of peace. And I wrestle with, does that make me a bad mother? Did I fail him by not sticking to the plan? And I think so a lot of times these families need grace and a space to say, it's okay to feel guilty. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to feel like I don't want to be a parent right now. Those are all normal and totally okay feelings to have in this situation. And I think once we open up to everyone and really allow that to be a conversation of, oh, you're so strong because you have a child with autism, and it's okay to feel overwhelmed, that I think we'll see less of that.
Yeah.
And I think that when we start making that a little bit more of an acceptable thing to say, that I love my children and I wouldn't change anything about them, but in this moment, I don't want to be your mom.
Right.
I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with these behaviors.
So I think it's important that you're making the statements, because you're not alone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and it gives everyone involved the space to say, like, okay, you are struggling with this part. Like, how can we make this easier for you? Instead of them silently doing, like, oh, no, everything is fine. Everything's okay. Because that's not why we're here. We're here to all help and to be a resource. And that might not mean that the BCBA or the team has that ability to help that maybe behavior at the moment, but maybe we can also point to a parent support group or other leisure activities that are out of the house, so you can get a break that is appropriate and is a social outlet for your child. Like, there are so many resources out there, but until you say something, no one's going to know. And everyone feels that way.
And I think the longer you hold it in, the more it perpetuates that guilt.
So Chase, since you're on the other side of being still a child, you're an adult. Sorry, you are an adult now. So with the conversation and seeing how parents feel, what do you think of it when we're talking about these things?
I would say it's very, sometimes it's a little relatable, like...
Like what? I hear
a little relatable.
Oh, relatable.
Yeah.
So when you're saying how sometimes parents feel a certain way because it's a challenge sometimes, how do you feel about that? Do you understand it, or do you...
I understood.
Did you ever feel frustrated with you yourself growing up with certain things that you just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes the other way. Like, a child, I mean, we all have parents. We all feel the same way about our parents. So, I mean, it's just a human response to having this mother-child or parent-child relationship of, like, everyone gets frustrated with each other. And having a disability adds another layer to it, but it's also, part of the team's a positive team to bring that back and be like, hey, well, your struggle is a normal struggle. I have that, you have that, like, everyone just pointing it out and being able to talk about it is, I think, one of the really, like, beautiful things about ABA is that we're all working together.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with ABA, in our example, is Chase was so accustomed for people always doing for him. So now we have the habit of people always doing things for him. So now we're on the other side trying to say, okay, you have to think of others. So I think we ABA have to start working on, you have to think of others early, because he's so used to being so spoiled. It's like, okay, Chase, you have to think, if I fall out the car, you should get up the car and say, "How are you okay?" You know what I mean? Not just sit there. So those are some of the other things with ABA is that they're so accustomed to that, and as they get older, it's going to be less of that. But then where's that transition of getting them to be independently?
I think that it happens very slowly. I will tell you that one of the best things that come out of, like, my son and I's relationship, just in general, is that ABA gave him a way to communicate his feelings, and taught him different ways, like, what he was feeling.
Right.
And because he didn't have the words for them. And so, like, now we can sit down and have a conversation where it's like, if one of us is frustrated, we can talk about that. And I can tell him, like, I'm not frustrated with you, even though it looks like I'm frustrated with you. I'm not frustrated with you. I'm frustrated because I'm not just your mom. I also have a job. and I also have other responsibilities, and sometimes that's overwhelming to me. And so it looks like I'm frustrated with you.
Right.
And he can tell me, I don't want to frustrate you. I don't want to make your day harder. So I'm starting to feel overwhelmed,
Nice.
trying to make you, like, you know, and
Yeah.
it does it. You get into a cycle with your children,
Yeah.
and
But that's a good conversation to
it
have.
is. And so, you know, ABA really has, like, not just those things, like, but he's been able to say, like, I don't want to do my homework because I just don't want to. There's no reason for me to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so let's talk about that. Like, what do you need from me to better encourage you to do your homework? Like, what's going to be something that works for you to want to do it? Because right now your Oculus is not, it doesn't
Yep.
it doesn't drive you to accomplish things. So it really has taught us different things about him and given him language to use, and shown, you know, me as a parent, like, reinforcers change, and to be able to find new reinforcers, like, it's really changed. I went from a 5-year-old that pulled out his own hair on a regular basis and would just scream and fight every day to do the most simple things, to he does come home and does his homework. He hasn't pulled out his hair in 3 years. And while we do face certain things, I am much more, we're just, our household is much calmer in general.
Yeah. So the communication's key,
Yes.
because in our experience, I'm just speaking of our experience, when they're not able to communicate and say how you feel, it comes out a different way. What he used to bite. So if he was frustrated, he'll bite, and I was like, oh, I can't have this. Bite, and or he was smack. So we had to learn, So we didn't know anything about autism at that time, but then we had to learn. Okay, what are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to say? So that's what ABA was really key in terms of, you're right, expressing the feelings, know what a sad face meant, what a when somebody's crying, what that meant, when somebody's smiling, what it meant, knowing how to just say, I'm hurt.
Yeah.
Just communicate that, because if he was sick, he would never communicate it. And so ABA was very important in terms of the communication for that.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest piece to it, is really it teaches everybody a different way to communicate with one another and to pick up on nonverbal communication within your family.
Yeah. Well, how can families be more involved with ABA services?
I think the thing that's most beneficial is being able to, like, go out in the community, but also saying, like, what you want to do, like voicing it. It's almost if you say it, we can start working on it. But if you keep it, like, secret inside yourself, like, we won't know. So say, pick something that's important to you. I had one family at the beginning of my career say, like, eating dinner as a family is the most important thing to us, but our child will not eat anything except for, like, these 3 things. So it's like, perfect. I got something I can work on, and it brings in family buy-in, and then we can start working on maybe the things you don't want to tell your team right when you meet them, but things like you will tell them once you start to trust them. So finding something that you want to work on as a family, it might be something small and consequential, like eating dinner together, or your child making their own bed, something appropriate, that we can start working on. And I think that is really beneficial. And allowing your team to communicate with your school team, with other providers that you may have, that's great, because then we can all have the same language, and that way you'll see it. These changes that you're working on at school also carry over to home, and then you'll get, like, more bang for your buck, really.
Right, which is important.
And I think it's important to remember that, like, yes, Jess has gone to school for this. I've been dealing with this, like, administratively for many years, but we are not your family. So what you think should happen is just as important as whatever Jess comes up with as a behavior plan, whoever I hire as staff. You know better than anybody who is going to work well with your family what behavior plans are, like, if you see that it's not working, to say, like, I'm not comfortable with this.
Or if it's something you can't do when we're not there. If you can't carry this out when we're not there, then it's not going to work.
Like, just remember that we don't know better than you just because we work for a company.
Right.
We never want you to feel that way. And you are allowed to speak up and say, like, I don't think this is working, and I don't think it will work for us. Can we try something else?
So do you only work with parents directly, or do you work with the school systems at all?
Both.
Okay, good.
Definitely. Of course, like the family has to agree to let us talk to the school
Right.
system. But I mean, coming at it from both angles as a teacher and as a BCBA in a home program, like it's so beneficial because you might be doing something in a school program that I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of to approach it that way.
That's because sometimes it's challenging for the parent to get ABA therapy in the school. That's a whole other conversation, because again, writing your IEP, but we could talk about it at a different time. But it's important that a parent knows that you can request ABA therapy for your child, and sometimes you can even request a specific person for ABA therapy for your child, if the school can't provide the appropriate ABA therapy for your child. Is that correct? Okay, so just keep that in mind, parents.
I mean, we're all part of the same team. I don't think anyone's going to work saying like, what I want to do today is hamper everyone's progress. Like we're all here just to.
You'll be surprised.
I hope
But you
that's
can't
not true.
say it. I can say it as a parent, because I get phone calls. Some, and I'm going to be honest, some schools do hamper.
That's so
But
sad.
we're working on it.
I can probably say that most people in Jess's position are not the ones hampering it, but as school districts,
No,
there is
yeah.
very much a
School
struggle
districts, yes.
to provide services.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told, the one thing that made me so passionate about this is I had a son, he has severe ADHD. Diagnosed, we had paperwork, and the school did testing and pretty much agreed to the testing because he was doing so poorly in school. And he was put on medications to help him do better in school. So by the time they did the testing and we sat down in the meeting, they told me, well, you're too good of a parent, essentially. Like, you went out and got all this outside help. We can't help you anymore, even with a diagnosis. And I just looked at him, I said, are you really?
Right.
So we're not trying to ensure that he stays on the right path. We're not trying to make sure that he continues like
Right.
different supports and things like that,
And
so he doesn't
progress.
have to stay medicated
Right.
indefinitely. That's
Right.
not the goal here.
Right.
And so as a parent, I watched it happen to my child
Yeah.
kind of get lost in the system of, I think the hardest place to be is when your child is just good enough to not need assistance. And he can just kind of get through the cracks of the system. And that's where, as a parent, you have to be like,
You have
I think that's where it's important for your in-home ABA team to have that collaboration with the school, because we can sit in on your meetings, your IEP and 504, and we can sit there and say, like, listen, this is what we're seeing at home.
Yeah.
And it is important that it carries over in school. It is important that this stuff happens. And sometimes schools do listen a little bit more to a BCBA than a parent.
Sure.
Because if they can get out of it, in my experience, they will try
They
and
will.
get out of it.
They will. Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way though, because
It
we're all
should
equal
not.
members at the
It
table.
should
That's
not
why we all
be that
introduce
way
ourselves at a
all,
PPT.
But it's a sad story, and I'm in a lot of parent groups, and it's a very sad story. It shouldn't be.
And there's a lot of politics behind it and things like
There
that.
is.
And it's,
There is.
it's, I don't necessarily even know that it's always the school's fault as much as it's a structure that we've built
The red tapes.
to deal with children that need extra assistance in school.
How do you know what kind of company is the best for your family?
Say the company that makes you the most comfortable.
I would say, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And so really, like, as the person that mostly I deal with all the intake, and I have families that kind of talk. I encourage a lot of support, a lot of transparency, a lot of parent involvement. And again, that doesn't always work for everybody.
No.
And some families really love it. And so really, you have to, we're unfortunately, especially in Connecticut, we're in a point where waiting lists are so long that a lot of families are stuck taking whatever services they can get.
I know.
And it really is sad that some families are with people that they don't want to be with or they don't agree with. But I would say that, take into consideration what matters the most to you. Is it your schedule? Is it your involvement? And those should be the ABA companies that you kind of gear yourselves to. There are some ABA companies that also provide clinic and in-home. And if you really need that extra support, that is definitely what you should be looking into. And always, like, as many waiting lists as you can get on, they will eventually, somebody will come up. But getting involved with as many, you know, especially like you guys and different organizations and stuff like that will help you find some of the ones that don't have the longer wait lists. The smaller companies that are, you know, still accepting clients rather quickly as opposed to these larger ABA companies out there. But really just kind of decide what's important to you, whether it's your involvement in the case or your schedule with the case, and kind of decide from there.
Well, I highly recommend parents to be involved with the case. I think sometimes, in my experience with parents, they're like, well, this is what the school said. I'm like, yeah, the school's not always right, though. So we have to do our own due diligence. And sometimes some of us don't have the capacity to do that, but there's enough people out there for you to reach out to ask the question, how did you do it? That's how I was able to I became advocating. And how about Chase? I saw other individuals being successful on the spectrum. I'm like, so I called the mother up, how'd you do it? I called them up. I said, how'd you do it? And they shared. So, you know, get a how did you do it attitude to help you and your family to see what the best therapy is for your child.
I think as a company, we really pride ourselves that regardless of whether or not you're going to work with us or whatever, you can call us. I'd be more than happy to point you in a direction of a company, even if it's not ours, or even if you're not looking for ABA company, but you have no idea where to start or where to go.
Right, it's so challenging.
I welcome any phone calls. If you're looking to help your child and navigate a system that is incredibly difficult to navigate, if you have no contacts whatsoever, we want to help you. And it's not about whether or not you work with us or, you know, that's not the kind of company that we've created or that we want to provide, you know, be that company. We really genuinely want to help families and help them find the care that they need and the care that they want.
Yeah, and that's valuable, very valuable.
But I think we're very people first, person centric.
Right.
I mean, some different companies have a different mindset, or like even a different BCBA in our own company might have a different mindset. And I've definitely had clients say like, oh, like you definitely want a lot of my opinions. I actually just want your opinions. And that's fine. I mean, sometimes I'm not the right BCBA for a family. And
You
it's
have to find the right person.
Yeah.
It's a connection. We can't connect to everyone. You just got to find, you know, there's personality conflicts. I mean, I have a very strong personality, and that personality doesn't go well with everybody. But we're all coming from a good place.
Yeah. You got to trust your gut.
Yeah. And I always tell people, always look at the intent of the person and not always what they're saying, because we get sensitive. But look at the intent. Are they intentionally trying to help you? Are they intentionally trying to harm you?
Yeah.
And that's what you look at more beyond personality. That's what you look at more than anything else.
Yeah. Exactly.
But ABA therapy has been beneficial for our family, for many families that I know. But I also think that if you had a bad experience, just to be like open-minded to positive ABA therapy, as Transcend ABA offers as well. As you can see, the passion from DeWolf, Jessica, and Casey, and you could tell that they care. So make sure you find somebody that cares.
Okay, so thank you, Casey and Jessica, for being here today and interviewing with us. And thanks, Mom, for helping me host today. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll have their information at the end of the show. And thank you for watching. I'm your host, Chase Taylor, and I'm signing off. Goodbye.
All right, thank you.